Hello, everybody. Derek Priest here with Spot On Solutions. I'm super excited to bring to you another one of our $1 million interview series interviews with another really awesome and successful and really cool business owner and a good friend of mine, Mark Johnson. Mark is the owner of a a disaster service restoration company in well, it doesn't hurt that he's in one of the greatest places on the planet, home of the best baseball team on the planet, the Boston Red Sox. That's not the only reason we're friends, but it does play a big part on that. Just kidding you, Mark. But hey, Mark, welcome and thank you for taking the time to talk to us today and to share some experience of your personal experience on how you've grown your business.
Good morning.
So, Mark, like I said, Mark is a really good friend, longtime peer and colleague of mine. I've been able to watch and see Mark grow his business over I think we've known each other now for past 10 years now. Anyway, he's got a wonderful business, a wonderful family. He is a mentor and a person that I like to emulate. So, Mark, I'm super stoked about what you're going to be able to share with people, with business owners who are looking for ideas, looking for ways to really grow their company, and to get over that, accomplish that $1 million revenue phase of their business. I know that, usually a lot of times that is the biggest first goal of business owners to make $1 million. They find once you hit that goal, everything else, you find out that what it took to make the first million is not necessarily what it takes to make the second or third. But for our purposes in this series, it's really that starting out and how did you do it? What would you do differently? What were some of the challenges, maybe slash mistakes that you made that you learned from, and what do you do now that you learned that has made things better? So maybe what I want to start with just briefly, Mark, is give us a little bit of a background of kind of where you started, what went on in that brain of yours to even want to start a business in the first place, and then how long has you've been doing it, and we'll kind of and we'll go from there. How's that?
Sure. All right. So where do we start? Way back, I guess. Uh, so I actually went to a trade school, and I thought I wanted to be a cook when I was in ninth grade. I went into the cooking segment of it, and I left there after the month of being in the shop and classes and stuff like that. And I said, there is no way you're going to catch me in a restaurant. I couldn't stand the smell and the sticky floors and everything else. And then the hours they were working, the nights, holidays, and weekends when everybody's out, trying to enjoy themselves. You're out, trying to make them happy. So that was kind of the start of it. And then I actually happened to get into the carpentry program, and my draw was more the cabinets. So my experience primarily way back in the day, if you want to call it, back in the 80s, was cabinets. All I wanted to do was build and install custom cabinets. So that was my experience through high school. I worked, through high school at a cabinet shop. Went to college, worked at a commercial cabinet shop full time while I was in college. Continued my education in the construction and cabinet making field. And then after college, I came back to the same job I was working at through high school, and worked for him for another 2.5 years, primarily doing residential cabinetry, installing new kitchens and new construction houses, building and installing custom cabinetry. And that's all I wanted to do. I didn't want to get involved in the construction part of it. I didn't want to do anything else. I was the guy in the shop. I could set up a stop and I could cut 1,000 pieces. Didn't make a difference. I'd make them all perfectly the same. It was just I was able to control the environment, and it was warm, right? So I could control the
Sure.
temperature. I can't work outside with my hands. My hands just don't work when they get cold. So
I got you.
so that's kind of what, I was attracted to when I was younger. And so in '94 we decided I just wanted to change. I wanted either to try another job, or I was going to try my own business. And it's kind of like you get some opportunities in life, and it's I was ready for something different. And so when I was growing up, my dad always taught me, when you're young, you have some time to make some mistakes, go try some things out. If they don't work out, you have plenty of time to recoup. You get up in your later years, you get a house, you get a mortgage, you get a family to support and everything else. It doesn't make it all that easy to make changes and stuff later on. So I decided I was going to go for it. And if I didn't like running my own business, or couldn't run my own business, then I was going to go get another job anyway. So that was back in '94 when we started the business. And when I started the business, I had one cabinet job. I had one vanity to make that was all lined up, ready to go when I quit my job. Made the vanity, and then one thing turned into the other, and the job just started to change. But primarily back in the day, I had a wood shop set up. I still have it set up. That's all I want to do is give me a set of cabinets to build. I want to build them, finish them, install them, and that was it. So, and it just kind of grew from there. So
That's that's awesome. I love that story. That's part of your story. I didn't know. And
no,
I knew you were you were a cabinet maker. I knew that part, but I didn't know how it all started out. And that it's funny that you said you had one job. My future
one job.
is banking on this one vanity that
Yeah,
I've got to make. After that, I don't know where we're gonna go. But
I don't know. Yeah.
so, all right. So that is a great, that's triggered another question for me then. After that vanity job, like, what did you do? How did you go about getting the next job? And how did you grow your business to the point where, you know, obviously you started out as a cabinet maker and installing, building custom cabinets to, today, I mean, you still do cabinets, you still have your cabinet shop, but you've got a really large and successful disaster services company, which is, a little bit off the spectrum of
Yeah.
just building cabinets. So how did you get the next job, and how did you grow it from there?
So it was difficult, right? Back in the earlier days, that was in '94, that was coming right off the crash. The late '80s, early '90s, it was difficult to get work back then because, again, the economy was not that great. I was fortunate enough to get connected with a guy that I had known from when I was working at my first job in the cabinet field. He had started his own business at the time, and so we started working together. The jobs were primarily word of mouth. That's it. It was back.
Okay.
This is before really the internet got going. This is back with the yellow pages. Do you want to spend a gazillion dollars to advertise a little section in the yellow pages? Or you want to go out and try and make it happen? So we tried to go out and just find a little bit of work, but it was more family and friends, and who knew family and friends from there.
Right.
And you tend to get a referral in, and you go take care of that referral. And it was just him and I working together. So it was more, we're focused on quality. We're focused on doing everything ourselves as much as we could, because, hey, a paycheck, why could I pay that guy when I could make the money myself? So it started to grow into remodeling type projects. So the remodeling projects were, hey, while you're doing this kitchen, can you take that wall down? Excuse me. So as we're in completing the projects, can you take that wall down? Sure, I can take that wall down. And from there, it was like, hey, we need an architect, we need an engineer, and starting to get into the construction side of things. That went on for probably 5-6 years or so. That same type of scenario. At that point, we're getting into the late '90s. there was the projects were starting to get bigger. And so we ended up parting ways. We're still friends to this day. He's helped us out in several projects and stuff since then. And it was a good experience for me. So in the late 90s, a good friend of mine from New York was starting to get into the restoration business. He had a cleaning business about 2 hours away. And for the few jobs that I had back then on the water damage side, let's say, when there was a customer had came across a hot water heater or something that was leaking, I knew he was in the restoration business, so I'd call him, and he'd drive 2 hours to come help me out. And
Really?
so he'd come the first day, would get everything taken apart, what needed to be taken apart, get the equipment set up, and then I'd be his guy to monitor for the next 2, 3, 4 days, whatever it would take to dry. Once everything was dry, and I'd call him every day and check in and stuff. And once everything would dry, he would drive back 2 hours, pick up all the equipment, go back, and he'd bill the insurance company for it. And then we were getting the repairs. So back then we weren't really working for the insurance companies. We were typically going through the homeowner and, here's our invoice or here's our bill to get that done. And the homeowners were dealing with the insurance company. So that was around the time that the hurricanes started to come in, late 90s, early 2000s.
Okay.
The big hurricanes that were coming through, that wiped out the Cayman Islands, and Katrina came through, and there was like a period of time, I can't remember exactly, 4 or 6 years in a row that these major hurricanes are coming in and major damage was coming. So he actually started chasing the hurricanes. He was subbing some work from a bigger contractor, and so he was gone for 6 to 9 months at a time, and he just wasn't around to help out anymore. So he said, "Hey, if you want to go get your own, certifications and stuff, I'm never more than a phone call away, but I think you should just start doing it on your own." So that was in early 2000s that we started getting into the insurance field. So again, back then there were very few jobs. There weren't a lot of jobs. It was
Right.
like somebody knew us type of thing, that, hey, they did our job, and you figure you get, 2 or 3 jobs a year type of thing. That wasn't a lot of work for water damage. And then again, back in the day, there was a lot of still the phone book ads, right?
Right.
How much money do you spend in a phone book ad? When they go in, do you put it in the fire and water? Do you put it in the water and fire section type of, there was a lot of confusing areas to find. So at that point, we're still primarily heavily involved with just word of mouth referrals. Not a lot of marketing at all. I think we got the trucks lettered up sometime in the late 90s or so, but literally nobody knew how to find us unless they knew us. So at that point, we started to get interested in the restoration field, because the insurance repair process was the same exact work that we were doing all along, right? So
Okay.
we're putting insulation, plastering, the mechanicals and stuff all got put in, flooring, trim, painting. It was all the same type of work. The big difference with the insurance work is where's the money and who's paying.
Right.
So if I come to you today, Derek, and say, "Hey, your kitchen's going to cost you, pick a number, 50 grand to remodel your kitchen," you can say, "Great, what can I get for the 50 grand? Or for the 50 grand, I really want my white painted cabinets and my Uber Tuba granite or whatever the granite is type of thing. And here's all my appliances. Great. Can we do it for the 50 grand? Yeah, that's great. Let's sign the contract. We'll do all the planning, all the process, what we need for supplies, get all those ordered. So on day one, when we start, we have all the cabinets on order already. We have the kitchen designed out. Day one, when we start, we take everything apart. And then once everything gets taken apart, we already know what we're doing, right? We're replacing
Right.
all the cabinets, we're stripping out the walls, we're adding new wiring, new recessed lighting and stuff. Hey, Derek, by the way, we uncovered that wall, and you have a 2x4 that's that's rotted out, a section of wall that needs to be rebuilt. It's going to cost you $500. Yeah, go for it, Mark. Fine. We do the work, get paid the $500. It's done. We're moving on to the next job, right? And finishing up, but it's more of a consecutive process.
Right.
We had to learn the insurance process, which is much different from that, right? Now you're calling us and saying, "My dishwasher leaked, my water pipe leaked, my water heater busted." We're rushing out to get that emergency service done and completed. That happens very quickly. That part of the job, if you wait on it, it's going to get that much worse. The
Yep.
insurance companies have the options not to pay you at that point because you got it, you let it get that much worse. So you got to get on it quick. The other end of the insurance spectrum is just the opposite of dealing with the homeowner. it's all the same work, right? Keep that in mind. We're taking things apart and putting it back together. But all that planning process is built in between the taking everything apart at the beginning, which happens very quickly, and the ordering of those cabinets. Now, some of the cabinets that we order are 16 to 20 weeks just to get the cabinets.
Yeah.
Now you're talking 4 to 5 months to get somebody back in that kitchen if you have to order a set of cabinets right now. It does kind of rile up a little dander in people of, that it doesn't always sit all that well with them, that hey, you got to wait to get these ordered because all that planning wasn't being done before the job started. It happened, but you got to be there. Everything starts to happen very quickly. So
And they're out of the kitchen, right?
exactly, yeah. So it's a different process, but all the work was the same. Once we figured out all the work was the same and started to figure out the process, it became a little more attractive because if you did a good job, we're all about customer service. The entire company, we keep stressing our employees, you got to be honest, you got to be open with people, and you got to do good quality, right? So if you can do that and you can win them over on the cleanup side, it's an easy sell on the repair side. They love the guys, love the crews, the cleanliness, everything else that goes along with it. It's an easy sell on the repair side. So we were finding that if we could get the mitigation work, it was an easy sell on the repair side. It was easier to get more business that way because it's almost like you multiply it. You get one job, it turns into 2 jobs.
That's I'm what you said there about customer service. Okay. I think in business in general, everybody says, oh yeah, well we're all about the customer. Customer service is our trademark, and then you go check them out on Google, and probably is not the case, right? But and there's in business, there's things that are important, and there's things that maybe are less important. Where would you say your customer service in how it has related to the growth of your company? Where does that sit on the scale of importance to you and your company?
So, well, customer service is huge, right? So we're one of only a few companies, if any companies, that have grown the business to the size that we have without a full-time marketing person.
Okay.
Right. So if I had a full-time marketing staff that was out drumming up all these additional leads and stuff like that, it maybe the sales would come in, maybe we'd be a lot bigger than what we are right now.
Mm-hmm.
The size has never been important to me, but it's how you're taken care of, right? So if I'm not out doing all this marketing and begging people to come to our business to give us work, if I can go out there and get in front of the customer and say, yeah, we'll do the best job, let us prove it to you, right? We're not going to try and hard sell the second part of the job. We're out there trying to earn the business on the beginning part. So if we're putting all our eggs in the basket that we have good enough customer service to go and win them over for the second part of it, it's an easy sale for the second part. So if you're not focusing on that customer, communicating with them, letting them know what's going to happen, dealing with the insurance company and communicating with them, it doesn't work out too well because those customers are not willing to go to work the next day and share the story, or hear somebody that says, hey, I was late for work this morning because my hot water tank blew up in the basement and made a mess of my basement. They're not going to go out on a limb and tell their fellow employees, their friends, to go use us, right?
Right.
So those are easy marketing dollars for us to go and say, take care of the customer first, make sure they're good quality and stuff, because that will go a lot further for you with getting more business, right? So I don't know what the exact percentages are, but the bad word or the bad news spreads 10 times faster than good news. Yeah. So you better make it good, right? So when you're growing up and your parents say, hey, you go and start acting up, you go and start making a big deal, you get yourself into trouble, that word's going to spread around town and through the friends groups and stuff a lot faster than if you do something good. But if you're doing something good, that's what's going to get you more business than doing something bad. You don't want that word spreading that you're a bad company, that don't work with those guys because they didn't take care of me. You want the other part of it. And that other part of it is really the valuable piece of keeping the business coming in the door.
So how do you what's the you don't have a full-time marketing person. That's awesome. I love that you've grown your company the way that you have, but you've had to do it very, strategically, with specific things being the most important, especially when it comes, you talked about customer service, um, and people, saying good things about you. Would you say, so in order to do that, I got to assume that communication is pretty high on the list when it comes to customer service. Am I right?
Yep. So that's one of the keys. The other keys is trying to hire the best people you can, because as you grow,
Oh,
you
we're
and
going to
I
go
are
down that rabbit hole too. Okay. All right. Keep going. All
well,
right.
you and I are not the face of our businesses anymore, right?
Sure.
So if we can't go out and be the faces of our business, we have the confidence to go out, do the best job we can. We know we're going to keep the customer happy because our paycheck is depending on that. We're not going to work for somebody and saying, hey, at the end of the week, I got a paycheck, right? So
Yep.
you and I are going to go and say, all right, who's going to represent the company? And if you're not investing in your employees to get the best employee that you can, that's going to go out and represent you well, right? You're not going
Yeah.
to have the business coming back to you. So customer service is one. And in order to keep the customers happy, you have to have employees that love their jobs, that want to come work for you. You can't have employees that are going to come into work and grumble around and complain and everything else, and go out and have that same perception to the homeowners, right?
Okay. All right. All right. So
So customer service, right? In order to
yep.
get good customer service, how many times have you called a company to say, hey, I got an issue with this? And the person on the other hand, the person on the other line is irritated. They're a little short with their answers. They
Uh-huh.
don't give you the information that you needed. They really don't help you out. Well, you hang up the phone, you're like, man, that was a pain in the neck. That was a
Right.
waste of my time. They didn't help me out. But
Yep.
if you call a company, you're already disgruntled, right? You woke up this morning with no hot water. You're
Sure.
disgruntled. You have the person to answer the phone that's having a bad morning answer that phone on top of them having a bad day. How do you think that conversation is going to go? Probably
Doesn't
not
go
very
good
well,
at all.
right? So, so if you didn't have a good employee, right? Because we can't be out in front of our customers anymore, right? Or in front of
Yep.
all of them. So you have to have a good employee that you have to train to be empathetic to somebody, because
Hmm.
they're not in a good place right now. I didn't get my hot shower this morning. I'm late for work. I had a trip to go on. I'm going on a cruise, whatever. I don't have time for this. They're irritated. So you have to go and be empathetic to them. And again, it starts from that first phone call on down the line to the employees that show up, the employees that show up to the loss, the
Right.
people that do the work on the loss. All this goes into that whole customer experience. That customer service is saying the person that answered the phone was grumpy. The guys who showed up, didn't really know what they were doing, made a mess of the house, and now they're asking me to go and give them the business to go and put all this back together. There's no confidence there. I'm not using that company. I'm moving on.
That's true. I mean, that is so true. I mean, especially in the world that you live in, you meet people on their worst day, right? I mean, that's, people don't plan their lives around hiring you because
Yeah.
you show up when crap happens. I get that. That's the nature of the disaster service business. But since, you hit on, in my opinion, one of the most important and most critical aspects, and that is, hiring great people and who love their job. And ultimately, you've got to provide an environment where they can love their job, right? And where they do love their job. So, especially in, I mean, I hear this, you open up any forum, you look at Facebook, you talk to anybody who has got a business, and in the current environment, economic environment that we're in, it's difficult to find, I won't even say find good people. It's hard to find people who
Yeah.
want to work. So, how have, and honestly, you've started this process a long time before, the plague, the pandemic hit us. So how has hiring, how has culture, how have you done that? How have you navigated those waters to find and hire and retain great people that, like you said, love their job, are happy to come to work, are fabulous at what they do, and can relay and give that the level of customer service that you expect and from your company. That was a whole bunch of questions there grouped into one,
Loaded, yeah.
but I mean, it goes into like lots of people are struggling, and you cannot build a business, $1 million business on your own. Like you couldn't do your job and grow to $1 million if it was just still you. So how do you do that? How do you find people?
So back when we were topping, $1 million in business, there was probably 7 of us or so.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're about 24, 25 at this point. So we've grown quite a bit. I would say if I had to do it all over again, and my focus was purely on how big can we get the company as fast as we can.
Sure.
In my opinion, I don't think I could do it. Maybe there's some people out there that could. I just don't think it's possible from my end, and try and get the people to really buy into the company and to have it a sustainable company. So some of those people that you know 8, 9, 10 years ago are still with me to this day. And I think it's you if you talk to somebody and says, I have no problem finding good people, or I have the magic answer, I'm going to go grab you all those good people and I'm going to hire them for you type of thing, I'd run the other way.
Okay.
Sorry. If somebody says that they have the magic bullet, we're going to hire you all these great people and we get the secret sauce and stuff like that. Based on my experience, I haven't seen those people out there. We've tried a number of different things over the years. We've had some people hire for us and that type of thing, but it's more of it's finding employees in a crock pot, right?
Sure.
It's just kind of that slow, kind of marinated in, it kind of cooks all day long type of thing. If you're trying to find an employee fast, it's not going to work very well. You're going to have to take some people that are not qualified into your company, and then what's that going to look like to the customer, right? So we've hired some people in the past that didn't really work out that well. That's okay. It's going to happen. You can't always get the good ones right off the top, but you have to be a little more patient and make sure that you're not looking for that quick hire. And as your business builds and moves along, just being out in the community and stuff, people seeing your vans all over, and the consistency of how you present yourself in the community. I get comments all the time. I see your vans all over the place. Well, that's great, but it also builds confidence on people that are looking for a job too.
Uh-huh.
If they see a consistency of what you're putting out there, certain people will be attracted to your company, right? So it's not all about all the ads that we've run. You get lucky every once in a while. You come across somebody that's good and you're able to hire them, but you always have to be hiring. You really do. If you say I'm not hiring right now, you could have just passed on the best employee that you ever had. And if
Sure.
you're like, hey, I need a guy for today, and some guy says, you know what, love to come work for you, but I want to make sure I give my employer 4 weeks before I move on. And you're like, no, I can't wait for the 4 weeks. What type of message is that sending to that new employee? Right? Is it really that important that you need to have a body in there tomorrow, or can you wait for the 4 weeks to get that perfect employee or that better hire? So you have to kind of put your mindset of, I need somebody today, in the back seat, and you have to be consistently hiring every year. If somebody calls and says, are you hiring? Yeah, we're hiring. What are you looking for?
Right.
It's got to be the response, because you never know when somebody's going to get dropped in your lap of that next best employee. Some of my best employees that I have right now came from referrals. So one of my employees came from a referral. He's been with me the longest. He's been with me for 11 years now. He came from a referral. I called a friend of mine and said, hey, you happen to know anybody that's looking for a job? We're hiring. We need a guy. And so he called somebody else contacted Bill, and we met. He's still around. Somebody else that we had didn't show up for the first interview. She's been with us for 8, maybe going on 9 years now. So
Oh, really? Okay.
yeah, we followed up with her, and she had kind of a change of phone or something. She lost the number and didn't know who she called, or didn't really remember kind of how she got in contact with us. We ended up reaching back out to her for the second interview. She's still with us today. So it's you got, I guess what I'm saying is you have to be open-minded and try and be able to sift through the people that, if you're sitting across from somebody and their eyes are starting to glaze over, or they're not really engaged in the conversation during the interview and stuff, put yourself in your customer's shoes. Would I want this guy walking into my house and representing the company that I just hired?
Right.
So
right.
I think if we focus on the employee, focus on our best as we can, focus on trying to get the right employee, and it's not always perfect. You're going to get some bad ones,
Sure.
but you put that first versus how big can I get the company and how big can I get my business, you're going to be in a lot better position, right? You're going to have a lot more sustainable company than somebody who's just looking for a quick hire.
That's super valuable advice, that always be hiring, always be looking. I think one of the biggest mistakes that companies make is the wait. They wait too long. They wait until they're desperate, right? It's like, oh, I need some, they're not always looking. They're waiting until they have a need, and then they got to fill it, and they fill it quickly with the wrong person. Like you said, I like that idea of always be looking, always be, it doesn't necessarily mean you got to hire them. You just are always looking. I love that idea. And the fact that, matter of fact, both of those two examples you gave, the guy who's been with you for 11 years and then the lady who's been with you for 8-9 years, whatever. First of all, kudos to you that they've decided to stay that long. Like that's, that says a ton about the culture and the atmosphere and the environment that they have to work in, right? And they get to come to work every day. That in and of itself speaks volumes to me. But I love the fact that you didn't pass over this young lady because she missed the first interview, right? How many times? I mean,
she's been reminded a few times too.
I'm sure. As a matter of fact, I'd hold that over her forever, right? But regardless, I think that's fantastic that you didn't just put blinders on and say, hey, well, you automatically assume that she just is, not responsible, doesn't care if she's not, she's not going to be to the first interview. Obviously, something could have happened. So I think it's huge. So great advice. I love that. I mean, because people are your number one asset, right?
So what I don't understand. So I started a business when I was 22. So I didn't grow up in another business that I saw the corporate structure and how everything worked. I had to learn from doing a lot of things, right?
Sure.
But I never understood that when I've been out in the community, out at other jobs and stuff like that, and you talk to other contractors or employees of contractors and stuff like that, and there's periods of time that go by that like, well, there's no work for us. I only had 2 days of work this week, so that always bothered me. I was never in a job that I had to really worry about if I had 5 days of work or not, right? So the employers that I've worked with in the past, again, probably fortunate, but I always worked for an employer that I knew I had a paycheck at the end of the week. I always got paid, and I could always count on at least 40 hours. Right. And the 40 hours might not have been production in the field, but I had 40 hours to bring home with me. There's very few times that I remember of ever having even a half a day off because there was nothing to do and I wasn't collecting a paycheck. But my my advice to new employers or employers in general, don't be quick to hire somebody because you just got a big job and you can't staff the job. So you're going to go hire everybody and then not in the back of your head, understand the fact that you're supporting somebody else's family when you bring somebody on board. There's somebody else that's counting on you to make the mortgage payment, the rent payment, the car payment, the family, feeding the kids and the wife and, significant others and whoever else that they need to feed. Put yourself in their shoes. Would you want to go to work for somebody that you're going to get a paycheck at the end of the week and a nice, stable, consistent business? Or do you want to work with somebody that you go 90 miles an hour for a month and then 2 months of dribbles into work here and there because they don't have enough work coming in the door for everybody they have on board? It doesn't build a big or good culture in the business, right?
Sure.
If I have an employee come into this company to come work for us, that's one of the bigger things I try and present to them in the business. There's a lot of companies out there that'll pay a higher dollar amount, but they're not committing to the work. So you can make a higher dollar amount and work less hours, and overall for the end of the year, your paycheck is a lot less, but that higher dollar amount is a lot sexier to go to work for because I'm making, pick a number,
Right.
a lot more than what we can offer around here. But it's the commitment of the other employer. How committed are they to give you the 40 hours a week at that rate? Are they using you as needed when they have the work? Or are they committing to you this is a full-time job here? So all the employees and stuff, when they come here, we find things for them to do. And the few days, there are a few times that there's nothing to do as far as productivity, maybe get held up on a job, something was supposed to be tested that wasn't. Now you get a little change in schedule. We always have a short list of things to fill in with, right? So if you came to work for us, you could count on, and you could talk to any of the other employees in this company. There's been very few days that people have had days off that there hasn't been something to do. And if you're taking a day off because there's a little light in work, it's because you chose to, right? So if you build a company that's a solid company that has a consistent amount of work that's coming in and you're getting a consistent paycheck, in my opinion, it's a lot more valuable to attract those people coming into the business than just what the hourly amount is. The hourly.
Right. Okay. Yeah. All right. I love that. I agree. 100%.
If you bring somebody in and you have them interview with another person in the company, if that's a concern with them and they address it, I want to make sure that my employees understand that, yes, they have a paycheck and they're going to let those new employees that are coming on board or potentially looking at the company, hey, this guy's company or whatever, this company that we're going to work for here, it's going to be a consistent paycheck for you year round, right? So we're able to attract a little different person than some of these other guys that are in the business or in the trades and stuff like that are not used to that. I know the last couple of years and stuff like that, it's been a little different with the COVID and people getting laid off and whatever. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking beforehand. And even during COVID, we never laid anybody off. Did we have a change of staff through 2020? Sure. Just like anybody else did. We had a little changing of the some employees and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, everybody was counting on us for a paycheck. And if you set yourself up in business as a consistent, profitable business, you're going to be able to take care of those employees and worry about yourself after. Make sure your employees get paid, because when that surge does come in, you need to work 80, 90 hours a week to keep up. You need those employees there to take care of them now in the lean times, because there'll be money, when those busy times come. So.
Awesome. Great advice. I love that. Thank you. And that's huge, because people struggle with that. I mean, a lot of times people just look at their employees as a liability, and we're just using them to get a job done. And that's really it's not the way to build a successful, long-lasting company. So I love that.
Our business would not be what it is today without our employees. We have an awesome crew. We have hired a number of people recently and stuff like that, but we just have a great staff that again, I can't be out on the jobs anymore. But if I didn't have this awesome staff to go out and staff all the jobs and get the jobs done and do a good job, we wouldn't be in business right now. So,
Right.
yeah.
I put your staff, put your team members first. They are your biggest asset. That's fantastic. All right, so Mark, you know me. We've had many conversations, and you know that I can talk for days on end. But we've now been talking for just about an hour, so we're going to wrap things up. But as we wrap up, and this may, and we can go down. I can go down a rabbit hole and just really dig into things, and that's what we've done here. And I really appreciate especially the advice, the tips you've given on hiring great people, and always be looking to hire. What if there was one more or one final piece of advice that you could give a potential struggling business owner who's trying to grow his or her company, get past where they're at, get to that $1 million revenue piece, then what would that one piece of advice be? Or would you go back to the hire great people? Like what would the last, as we part, what would you say?
So that is a loaded question, because I
Yes,
know I'm just thinking back to when we were a smaller company. When we're a smaller company, budgeting and money and stuff was a big concern, right? Because the numbers are a lot smaller. But when you wanted to do something, let's say like a marketing campaign, or first time we're going to try and do some internet marketing, or we got an ad this big in the phone book and we're going to make it this big next year. It's like all those dollars and stuff that you're putting out, you're trying to get the best bang for your buck, right? So not that it's any different now, because the numbers just get extra zeros added to the end, and that's really all it is. So it's not really much different from there, but my mindset was a lot different back then. It took me from 94 and being 22 years old till 2008 to find somebody that I trusted enough that I started to work with them to try and teach me how to build a business. Up until that point, I was always trying to learn from other people. When I met them at the lumber yard, some of the subs that were on the job site, meeting friends of friends that were in the same business type of thing. And I did have a little bit of help along the way, but it was more trying to keep up with what they were doing. If they were charging a certain amount, I was going to try and charge a certain amount.
Sure.
And if I felt like, hey, I had a little leg up on them, I might bump my rate up by a couple bucks or something like that. But it was kind of a little smaller process. But it wasn't until I actually learned how to run a business, that's when I first started to see the growth. So in 2008, what happened in 2007, 2008?
Market crashed.
The market crashed.
Housing market went to the toilet.
The housing market went in the dumpster, right? So where do you think all those people were that were in the remodeling business? Because back then we were doing probably, 70, 80% of our work leading up to 07 and even more was remodeling work. Mm-hmm. Derek, we can remodel your kitchen for X amount of dollars. You want to do it? Yes or no? We signed the contract, we go into the work. Up until that point, that's where all of our business, or most of our business, came from. But I was always moving towards, trying to make the business a little more sustainable, right? When we got into the insurance business. But leading up to that point, it was all trying to learn a little here, a little there. And I never really connected with anybody that I really felt confident that really could teach me anything about the business. Right. I had other people that were like, oh yeah, I'll help you out. But I'm like, well, you're in the car business, you're in the whatever business. Like what do you know about me banging nails, right? What do you know about putting cabinets together and installing it? You don't know, you can't teach me anything. So it wasn't until I met this guy at a seminar in 2008. And in 2008, when he started to teach me how to run the business, I didn't understand how I was able to afford somebody to sit in the office and answer the phones. I was answering the phones up until that point, kind of. So in 2008, when I started to learn how to run my business, I was understanding financials a little clearer. right? I was
Okay.
understanding how to bill for things, to say, all right, this is how we pay for somebody to stay in the office and answer the phones, but I have to have a certain amount of work to have that, right? So my the long and the short of it is, if I have to shorten up the whole story, not to get in the next hour worth of information, maybe it's a story, another video but it wasn't until 2008 when I started to run my business in one of the worst economies that I can remember being in, where the remodeling industry took a tank. We were doing enough insurance work at that point that it kind of evened out and we plateaued for a couple of years. But I raised my prices and figured out how to run a business in one of the worst economies and never looked back from there.
And
So
so you're saying that you found a coach, a consultant, somebody who has been down the road, who could teach you how to run your company. And once that happened, it you had growth after that.
yes, correct.
Okay.
So up until that point, again, there's nothing different than today, except you get zeros at the end, right? It's all in your budgeting. But up until that point, I was like, I can't afford that. I can't
Right.
do that. I don't have the money to do that. All right, that's not gonna be worth my time, because I was always like where I was. I had enough work where I was, charging how I was, just making it by. Yeah, I had a paycheck. I had a family at that point I was supporting and that type of thing. But when I learned how to run the business, my eyes get opened up and I'm like, oh, it took me 15 years of working in the field and answering the phones during the day, doing the estimates at night, and working weekends and stuff to try and get caught up, and working during the day, my time in the field with the guys and stuff like that to try and figure out how to run a business. So if I had to do it all over again, even at 22 or 23, it was a little harder back when I was younger, because that's a whole different thing of people that don't have confidence. They look at this young kid walking in their house and saying, he's going to come remodel my kitchen or build a set of
Uh-huh.
cabinets for me. So that was a little more convincing there. But at 22 or 23, I think I could have been in a lot different position, even back then, of learning to run a business and getting around other people that were already in the business to give you the confidence. Yes, this is what you need to do to run the business, and not like, well, yeah, should I do this? Should I not do this? Get somebody that you trust, right? That's already been there, done that. They
Sure.
can grab you by the hand and say, you know what? This is exactly what you need to do in business. They're not going to do it for you. They're not going to make the decisions for you,
Right.
but they're going
Right.
to guide you along the way. And if I didn't have that back in 2008, I'd probably still be out in the field still working,
Right.
right? And the business probably would have been, a lot smaller than it is today. At that point, we were only at like 600,000, I think, back in 2008. And it's grown from there. But if I had to give an advice to anybody, you got to get yourself around individuals that know how to run a business, and network with other individuals that have been there, done that, to kind of show you that it can be done and to build the confidence. Because if you're up against the wall trying to make a decision and there's a lot of money on the line of, should I do this or should I do that? And there's a clear path, but you're just like, hey, I'm not sure I really want to take the chance because it's going to be a lot of money, and you stay
Right.
where you're at, you're not going to grow, right? And one of the biggest, I guess, helps for me is when we go to these events throughout the year. Violan puts on a lot of events and stuff, and you get yourself a lot around a lot of other restoration companies that are going through the same struggles you're going through, that you thought you were a loser and you couldn't run a business and things are just going horrible. The insurance companies don't want to pay. The homeowners don't want to pay now. I got somebody that, kind of made a mistake on a job, like all these different things, employees that don't show up on their first day of employment, like all these different things you hear that I'm like, man, this only happens in Massachusetts. No, you go and I know companies all the way out to Alaska now, right? You do too. Everybody
Yep.
has the same exact stories. The zip
Uh-huh.
codes change. So
Yep.
now you come back to your own business. You're like, man, I'm not that guy that can't run a business.
It's going okay.
I'm doing okay, right? I'm ready for another year. I'm ready for another couple months, and you
Uh,
get through it. But if I didn't have that, I'm telling you right now, I wouldn't be in the position we're at. I really would not. Because some of the stuff that I was starting to get in the insurance companies, even, I'm like, oh, I didn't realize you could do that. Oh, I got to do this over here. Like I had help along the way.
yeah.
And if you
Yeah.
don't get that help, you're doing it all on your own. That first adjuster that comes by and says, "Hey, we're not paying for that." You're like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I guess you're not going to pay for that, and you're going to try and do it on your own and not get paid for it." No,
Sure.
you have to pay for this because this, and this already happened, and that's part of the insurance process. You have to pay for this, and when you start to get that confidence of saying, "Yeah, this is what I need to do. This is what I need to bill for," and oh, by the way, yes, we do need floor protection on that job because I need to go and make sure we're taking care of somebody's house. You have to pay for that. It makes it easier moving forward because you have that confidence.
Right. I love that. That's like pearls of wisdom. I love that because yeah, find it. You got to have great mentors, great coaches, people who have been in the trenches and know what they're doing to give you advice and to guide you and to teach you, once you learn the numbers, once you learn how to run a business, from somebody who understands what the numbers mean and what numbers to pay attention to, everything changes. Awesome.
Not easier, it just makes it easier.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You're still going to
Right?
have challenges. Those
Yes.
aren't going to go away. So awesome. Well, Mark, brother, appreciate it. Thank you for your time. Thank you for
Thank you.
the wisdom that you have brought and that you've shared with our viewers. And I'm so appreciative. I'm so glad that we are friends, that we have the relationship that we've been able to grow. And I love you and your family. They're best people. Everybody watching this guy has got the best family, best wife, best kids on the planet. So he's not just successful in business, he's got a fantastic support system behind him. So anyway, Mark, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. I can't wait for people to see this and to learn from what you've shared with us today. And I look forward to many more great conversations with you, brother. So
Appreciate
awesome.
it. Thank you.
Thanks a bunch.
All right.